Christos voskres. Christ is risen. Christos anesti. Alithos anesti. Hey everybody, this is Father Anthony Perkins, and this is my back porch here in Hartwell, Georgia. Thanks for joining me out here. If you can stick around for a few hours, we might grill some burgers or something. Yeah, you're always welcome. So today we've got an awesome guest, good friend, Father Theophan. But before we get to him, we need to prepare. I know I do. I'm jumping from thing to thing. My Google calendar is just packed because it's the last couple of weeks of school, you know, and I got all these projects and grading and things to get done. If I don't put it on my Google calendar, ain't gonna get done, and I know that things aren't getting done, and that builds anxiety in my life. So Google Calendar, man, that is stress tip number one for the day for me. Now it's funny, you know, you get stress tips from people, and I remember I identified a problem I was having, and I posted it on Facebook, right, for all my closest friends to offer me personal advice on how to manage my life. And you know, I get this advice, and I'm like, man, if I did that, I'd go insane. Well, come to find out, that person is wired completely different. If I did this stuff the way that he suggested, it would triple the amount of stress in my life. And of course, you know, I find things that work for me, and one size does not fit all. One size does not fit all. But something that is useful for most people most of the time is deep breathing and prayer. So let's do that. Let's do our deep breathing with the Jesus prayer. As we breathe in, I'll say the first half of the Jesus prayer. We'll pause, breathe out, and say the second half. We'll do that 3 times. It'll probably take about a minute. Okay? It's time well spent. Let's breathe in slowly. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, pause. Breathe out slowly. Have mercy on me, a sinner. Pause. Breathe in slowly. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, pause. Breathe out slowly. Have mercy on me, a sinner. Pause. Last time. Breathe in slowly. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, pause. Breathe out slowly. Have mercy on me, a sinner. Pause. Okay, resume breathing. Excellent. I'm in a much better place now. Let's go see the place where our brother in the Lord Jesus Christ, Father Theophan Mackey, is. There he is! And let me bring his audio on. See, he's talking, he's saying wise things, but you can't hear him yet. But now you can. Christ is risen.
Indeed, he is risen.
Amen. Oh, wow. Good to see your face. That's an awesome beard. We have this thing among Orthodox clergy. It's called beard envy, right? And that's the beard right there, dude. You know, it's nice and full. It's
need a couple more inches.
And it's got the gray in it, so you know he's moving up in experience and wisdom. He gets +5 on all his wisdom rolls. So ask Father Theophan something hard, and he's likely to give you a good answer. Right?
Hold on, I'll look it up.
Yeah, right, there you go. Take 20 and look it up. That's wisdom. Look at that. That comes with the gray beard. It comes with the gray and the beard.
Other people have already written on this question. Let me find out for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is wisdom, right? Knowing that nothing is so much of an emergency that it requires the first thought that comes into our fool heads, right?
There are emergencies, but they're very few and far between.
Right. And the combination of our fight, kind of instinct, and our ego tells us that we need to represent right in that moment.
Right. Well, you need to represent.
Yes.
You need to be kind and considerate and understanding, but you don't need to know.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Do you lose credibility when you say, why don't you give me a little bit of time to give you a considered answer?
If that's all it takes to lose credibility, then there wasn't a lot of trust in the relationship to begin with. That's how
You see, it's the gray. It's the gray in the beard. It is.
Just have 3 girls. Had 3 little girls, gray gums.
Oh, but I'm obviously more intelligent than you.
Oh, right. Yes,
Right?
the high forehead
The
of
high
John
forehead.
Chrysostom. Yes. That's why John Chrysostom is depicted with a large forehead.
Awesome.
It's
Awesome.
not that he was bald, it's that he was smart.
Very smart.
Right.
So you did something smart last night. Tell us about your
Oh,
adventure last night, Father. Tell us about that.
oh. Well, we have a camper that was given to us, and this was the first night that we spent in the camper. We didn't take it anywhere; it's just in the driveway. But we opened it up, cleaned it out, and we all spent the night in there. It's about 50 degrees right now, so we woke up cold. And you've got the 4-inch foam mattress uh, from the 80s, and so it was a bit uncomfortable, but anything to humor my daughters.
Oh, it's awesome, the variation, right? So if I were in your shoes, um,
Mm,
it'd probably be uncomfortable, but
yeah.
I would start goo-gooing my mattresses.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
the thing is, I don't think we're going to be spending a lot of time camping this summer. Maybe a couple times, but
yeah. Well, if
we'll
you
see.
could, where would you like to go?
The There are a couple campgrounds just around here that are probably a half hour away, and it really doesn't matter where you are. You're away from home, so
And folks who
there's
don't
that.
know you, they don't know where you are. Where are you exactly?
Los Alamos, New Mexico. We are. Let's see. Albuquerque is right center, north center of the state, and we are an hour and 45 minutes north of Albuquerque. So we're in the middle of nowhere. Um, but it's a beautiful middle of nowhere. We're up in the mountains at 7,500 feet, and so we get four, almost 5 beautiful seasons. I don't know how I got that. We get 4 beautiful seasons, and the summer it hardly ever gets over 80, 85. So down in the south, it's really beastly hot, but up here in the mountains, it's nice.
And Los Alamos is mostly known for being the nuclear city, right? Isn't that the
Yeah,
one?
the
Yeah.
atomic city. It's where the Manhattan Project was built and founded, and then in the 70s they opened up the city. It used to just be an army base with the families. It was called the Secret City because everybody who lived and worked in Los Alamos had the same PO box in Santa Fe, and so Santa Fe would get all their mail, bring it up, and distribute it in Los Alamos. Nobody knew that Los Alamos existed. So, yep, we're the atomic city.
Wow.
Everything glows at night, and it's either radiation or it's the uncreated light. I'm not sure.
Well, with the good work that you're doing up there, maybe one will catch up with the other, right?
Well, we'll see.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm not all that. I'm more familiar with the secret cities of the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, right? They had
Right.
them all over the place, and they'd put them in, inhospitable places, right?
Yeah.
And just create them using slave labor or whatever, right? And they'd
Hmm.
create them, and then the question was, would they become viable
Right.
after that? The need, the budgets, and so on were there to sustain them. So, how about Los Alamos? How's it doing? How's it doing? Does it
Well,
have an independent existence now?
well, it sort of because it is all dependent on the lab. So you've got Los Alamos National Laboratory is still in existence, and it's the biggest employer and it's the most lucrative employer, and everybody else that works here works to support the people that work at the lab. If the lab disappeared, it might become a resort town. We have some skiing and a lot of hiking, but it would dwindle very very quickly to not much.
So I've been in one industry towns, right?
Hmm.
And army bases, for example, that's an industry. And when you go to a one industry army base town, there's a certain economy that grows up around it, right?
Right.
And that's true of college towns,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
What's the feel? What's the culture like there at Los Alamos?
Uh, we live we live in a snow globe um, of of affluence. Oh,
Yeah, my wife just brought me my coffee. She is so awesome.
there you go. We live in a snow globe of affluence in one of the poorest states in the Union. So New Mexico as a whole is a very poor state, but Los Alamos is very, very affluent and very, very well educated. 1 in 10 people in Los Alamos has a net worth of over $1 million. 1 in 10 people in Los Alamos has a PhD. Now, those don't necessarily coincide,
Right.
but you could there's like great pride taken in the fact that we're affluent and that we're well educated. So our schools are the best in the state. Um, sometimes it can be annoying when people complain about the little things that in another city wouldn't even show up on the radar. But people will pick up trash off the road. It's very clean. People will, if you drop your wallet, you'll get it back with everything in it. You know, my daughters have lost stuffed animals at a park, and people will put it on a post and post it on Facebook and say, "We found this little guy, and we put him up on the post, and so we can go back a day later and pick him up." You know, it's just
Nice.
crazy the sense of community, um, which is wonderful, but it's insular. It's like nobody wants to go off the mountain, down there.
Right.
There's this kind of pride that sometimes is healthy and sometimes isn't.
So, what happens to the people who were born into those families? Do they stick around? Do they move out? Does it become like a hereditary sort of business, or what?
There are a lot of people who grew up here who still live here. Um, there are a lot of people who grow up, move away, and then move back. They're like, "Oh, I hate this little town," and then they realize, well, you know what? That little town was pretty sweet.
What about things like
So,
what's the cultural economy look like? Is it theaters? Is it coffee shops? Is
oh
it
my gosh.
bookstores? What's that like?
Well, so our population is 18,000. So think uh, Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania, Mechanicsburg. The tiny little towns in the Northeast that you would drive through and there are two stoplights and that's it. But because we're so well educated, demand education, demand all the fineries, and we have a good economy because the lab is still here. Um, we have we have coffee shops. We have at least two theater groups. We have not a symphony, but we have a couple bands that play. We have um, an aquatic center. We have multiple parks, multiple swimming pools. Any We don't have a Walmart, thank God. We don't have a Furniture Row. We don't have a Chili's. You know, they are mostly local businesses that are up here. We do have a Smith's, so that's our national chain. We have a McDonald's and a Subway, but most everything else is a local one-off business, which is a wonderful thing. I think gets to the idea of placeness, where when you go into a bigger city, off the highway looks exactly the same as every other big city. You have the exact same uh, chains everywhere,
Hmm.
and so we kind of take pride in that. When a company wants to come in here, they make it hard. They make it hard for a chain to get in here.
Trader Joe's, Whole Foods.
Down in Santa Fe. Down in Santa Fe. So you have to drive 45 minutes
So
if you
you're
want to go.
so you're consistent. You don't just keep the Dollar General out. You also keep the Whole Foods out.
Right. we're getting a small chain. Oh, natural grocers. It's not Trader Joe's, but it's actually moving in right next to the church. So our church is getting a neighbor of a natural food store.
So okay? So let's go to the religious culture. What's the spiritual culture like?
The We have one of the highest rates of church attendance, minus the pandemic, of course. Over half of the people go to church at least once a week. We have, I want to say, 43 churches or something like that, faith communities in for 18,000 people. The Roman Catholics are by far the largest, followed by the LDS and the Baptists, I think. We have the churches band together quite readily for social support. If they had a fire about 9 years ago that burned a quarter of the town. Everybody evacuated, and then when everybody came back, the churches got together. This was before my time, but the churches got together and helped out the people quite well. So there's even a sense of community in the religious realm, and really nobody criticizes the religious life of the town. So
Wow. So all those PhDs, you know,
scientists believe in God.
about that.
A lot of them do. Now there are the atheists, of course, but I've been by two of my atheist friends. I've been called their priest. They themselves have called me their priest. It's like I'm an atheist, but he's my priest. Like, okay, I'll take that.
Very good. Yeah, and if you're interested in knowing about how that works, we did a interview for Good Guys Wear Black, where Father Theophan talks about the evangelism of not being a jerk, or the evangelism of being kind.
Just be nice.
Just be
Goodness
nice.
sakes. It's like if you put a Christian bumper sticker on your car. Seriously, you have to be polite in your car.
Right. Yeah, it's like the old joke, the guy gets pulled over and says, well, what was I doing? Well, I knew this car was stolen because I saw how you were acting back there. And
Yeah.
yeah, very good. Well, that's nice. So tell me about the history of Orthodoxy there.
Okay, so I want to say 25, 30 years ago, there was a Orthodox group in Santa Fe, which is 40 minutes away. And that group, one of the ladies who was in that group was told by Archbishop Dimitri of blessed memory. Am I right with that? Diocese of the South. That was Archbishop Dimitri. It was Bishop Dimitri. He said, you live in Los Alamos, go start a mission in Los Alamos. And so she came up here and started doing reader services, gathering of the few Orthodox people that were up here. And so the Orthodox presence in Los Alamos is 25, 30 years. They had priests on and off. They started out non-canonical, I think, under Romanians, I think. Don't quote me on this. I'm not exactly sure. But then they went under the OCA, and I stepped in 5 years ago with the UFC.
Okay, yeah, so great. And so that gives us a chance to go backwards a little bit. So, people know where you are, what that place is like. Let's get to know you a little bit better. So
it's just an advertisement for Los Alamos. If you're Orthodox and you need a good job, apply at the lab. They're constantly hiring.
Really?
And we have an Orthodox presence here. Come.
Yeah, and we'll circle back around, right? We'll talk about the parish that you serve.
Yeah.
But I want to bring those together for a second. So tell us about kind of your life in Christ, how you came to know Him, how you came to find the fullness, and then how that grew into your calling to the priesthood, or whatever order that occurred in. So what does that look like? Give us the trajectory of your life in
Pretty
Christ.
much nailed it. My dad was an evangelical pastor, as long as I can remember. Um, and I don't actually remember becoming a Christian. It was, and when you're raised evangelical and you don't have a conversion story, it's kind of odd. Right, it's like I went to church from the time that my mother got out of the hospital. And church was just a fact of life. It was like there was no come to Jesus moment in my evangelical life.
Every moment was a coming to Jesus moment, right?
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, I was just as nasty a kid as anybody, but we went to church on Sunday. Well, we went to church 3 days a week, so. Um, so I grew up in the evangelical church, Christian and Missionary Alliance, if you know what they are. Um, and we moved around a little bit. My dad was a expert in growing a church, and so we would be someplace for 3 to 5 years before we'd move on. Um, we were mostly in New York, but there was a time in Georgia and Alabama when I was young. But then I graduated. Oh wait, no, go back. When I was about 15, my dad got fired from his evangelical church and went to the Episcopal church. And so wherever Dad went, that's where we went. And so we became Episcopalians when I was around 15.
And where were y'all then?
Utica, New York.
Utica.
So
Really?
upstate, way upstate, between Syracuse and Albany.
Yeah.
Terrible town. No offense, but Utica is not a pleasant place. So grew up, hated the Episcopal Church when I first started. I was like, these guys are Catholic, and raised evangelical. If it smacks of Roman Catholicism, want nothing to do with it. So I sat in the back for a few months until I realized they were reading more scripture in the service than we did when we were evangelicals. It was like, oh, there are scripture readings in the service. This is novel. And so it sunk in, and I actually fell in love with liturgy in the Episcopal Church. It was a big cathedral church, stone carvings, stained glass, the old stained glass, the good stuff. And it was beautiful. Smells and bells and robes and vestments. It was great. So graduated high school out of there, went to junior college in Utica, and then moved out to New Mexico and got my bachelor's in fine art.
Doing what?
And what's that?
What kind of fine art?
Ceramics, actually. Not mine, but this is the kind of stuff I did. I dropped out of the church pretty much for 10 years. So from 20 to 30, I didn't go to church. I had just started going back to church in my 30s.
Hold on. We got to back this up a little bit. So was it a crisis of faith or just apathy?
I was living in sin. And so church was dissonant for me. It's hard to go to church when you're living in sin.
Right, but
you have a tendency to be conflicted.
So I'm going to push you a little bit. Were
Sure.
you actively denying Christ, or were you just avoiding it altogether?
No, I was just avoiding it altogether. Yeah. I still considered myself Christian. Mm-hmm. I just was a very poor Christian.
Right. Okay, so 10 years later?
So 10 years later, I started going back to church, the other Episcopal church down in Las Cruces, the more traditional one. And then I was at a used bookstore there in town, and there was a poster on the community bulletin board, and it said, "St. Anthony's of the Desert Orthodox Mission, Great Vespers, Saturday night, 5 o'clock," or whatever. And I looked at my watch, and I didn't have anything to do, and it was like 4:30, and on a Saturday, and I was like, huh. And it was a block away. I mean, it was just one block away from where I was standing, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go to Vespers. And so I wandered into the church, and it was Father Gabriel Rochelle and his Pani and and Elizabeth Davies, who became my first daughter's godmother. Just the three of them. And they were all in their 60s, doing Vespers in a rented chapel. And something stuck. Now, Father Gabriel's teaching is amazing. He talked about the saints or something like that. That's what he does on Saturday night. I don't remember. But I was like, wait a minute. This is liturgical, but it's also got all the history. It goes all the way back. Because in the Episcopal Church, you have some history, but you don't have all of it.
Why not? Why not? Why don't the Episcopalians tie themselves up with that continuity?
Well, no, they would. They have their apostolic succession, but they don't have. So we're taught that there's two axes of apostolic succession. You have to have the line back, which they have. I mean, they have a consecrated bishop that consecrated their bishop, all that. But they don't have the current continuity with all. They don't have the Catholicity anymore. Gotcha.
So you can't and you can't own it if you're not proclaiming it, right?
True. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And so they don't. They do have saints' days and the cycles of prayer and all that. And there are plenty of Episcopalians that are higher than Catholics now. You have the whole Anglo-Catholic movement in the Episcopal Church, or the Anglican Church now mostly. But this felt like it had roots. It had all the roots. And so I stuck around. I kept going to Vespers for about 3 or 4 months, and then started going to Divine Liturgy on Sunday mornings. Met my wife there in that church, my future wife there in that church. And so we got together. We were both with other people at the time, but we kind of fell in love. Not kind of. We did fall in love. And then once we were married, I was fixing ATMs at the time, which is what you do with an art degree. And so she turned to me and said, "What do you want to do with your life? You don't want to be fixing ATMs when you're 60. Yeah, you're right. I don't. And I don't know if any of you know me, but I'm an idea guy. I have ideas. And so I would throw out ideas all the time of what we should do. Like we should start a retreat center, or we should start an after-school program, or whatever was my dish of the day. And she said, figure out what you want to do, and we'll make it happen. Well, that is a really come to Jesus moment right there. Figure out what you want to do, and we'll do it. So I said, at the time, I was like, well, maybe I should just take the St. Stephen's courses and become a deacon. And she said, if you want to go to seminary, let's just go to seminary. And so, over the next month of prayer, both of our jobs became untenable. So we quit both of our jobs, we sold our house, we moved across the country, and with the bishop's blessing, we went to St. Tikhon's. So, it was, and the whole story of that is just crazy, how well everything fell into place just at the right time for us to go. So.
And
anyway,
when was this? When were you there?
Gosh. So I've been here 5 years. So I graduated in 2014. So this was in 2012. 2011. Yeah, it was crazy. I'd do
Yeah.
it again in a heartbeat.
And St. Tikhon's, is it you had lived in Utica, right? So you're
Yeah,
used to that kind of rural northern thing.
yeah.
But St. Tikhon's, that area is a little bit different, right? Um,
It's rolling hills and farmland. I
so
mean, that's what it is. Yeah,
in it's interesting. You were late vocations, right?
yeah,
Already married, right?
yep.
Um, there's a different rhythm to seminary when you're
Oh
married,
gosh.
or there should
Yeah,
be. I hope.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Father Harry, Father Harry was talking about that is a really good experience. Did you find that to be the case as well? Would you recommend it for married couples considering a vocation?
Yeah, absolutely. The so I like to figure things out and make a system for them. The best way to go to seminary, in my personal opinion, is married with no children. Okay, just saying. I mean, you can go any way you can go, but the best way, the easiest way would be married, no children, because you have someone at home to support you,
Yes.
but you have no responsibilities at home to take care of when you're done with all the stuff that you have to do in seminary. However, I went with children. I went with one child and came out with three. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Seminary will do that.
So when you got
There's
home,
something in.
you would just kind of lean back on the couch and take a nap, right?
Right, she would bring me my beer, and I just it was easy,
You'd think deep
no problem.
thoughts and really easy.
Think deep thoughts. Yeah, no, there was very little deep thinking. It was really it was really a crucible. Uh, all the bad stuff floats to the top and gets scraped off, and it's not comfortable.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, that's what seminary does, right? And the army
Seminary.
does that too. It applies stress, and it's got
Oh yeah,
how many years, thousands of years experience doing this. They know how to push buttons, see how you react, and then kind of either kick you out or mold you into something that's
right,
useful, right?
right.
And so, are you a better man? Compare the man that went into and the marriage that went into St. Tikhon's and the man in the marriage that came out, other than the additional kids, right?
Yeah. Well, you really should ask my wife that, but I can tell you what she's gonna say. I and actually, it was most of the guys in the class too. So we had 10 guys in our class ish. Um, we were jerks coming in. There was a lot of ego. There was a lot of bluster, arguing over calendars and fasting and the minutia of Orthodox Christian life. And we came out somewhere in there. You got broken, and then on the way out, you had much more caring, gentle, compassionate men, much more mature. Um, not that I'm there yet, and things still come to the surface, but uh, it was a refining process, and little less full of myself than I was before. Little more willing to go look it up. Um, little more willing to be obedient. The the deacon that convinced me to go to St. Tikhon's, um, Father Deacon Ted down in Alamogordo, he said, if you go to seminary with some sort of entitlement or chip on your shoulder, it will destroy you. If you go with a sense of humility and be willing to do whatever they ask you to do, no matter how unjust it seems, it will be the best time of your life. And the few times that I felt entitled, it was really awful. But it was the best 3 years of my life.
Thank God. Thank God. I'm so happy to hear that. So St. Tikhon's, well done. Well done. Yeah, so then when were you ordained as a deacon? When were you ordained as a priest?
October 2014. No, October 2013. I was ordained a deacon, and then the following May, on Ascension, I was ordained a priest by Metropolitan Antony. It was supposed to be Archbishop Daniel, but Archbishop Daniel was deathly ill, and Metropolitan showed up 5 minutes before the service, and he had just gotten in from Canada at 3 in the morning. And he's like, your whole family's here, so we're going to do this.
And where was that?
It was in South Boundbrook.
Yeah.
At St. Andrews.
Right.
Yeah.
And so did you, sorry, I can't do math very well. Did you serve as a deacon and a priest in seminary?
Deacon in seminary for 8 months.
Okay.
And then I had graduated right before I was ordained.
Okay.
By priest. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where our stories start to intertwine, right? Is when you were finishing up seminary, and of course, even though you went to St. Tikhon's, we're like, yeah, we're not so sure about that. Why don't you come down here to St. Sophia's?
And I don't want to advertise for them too much, but they have good support system for married men.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, my understanding is that wasn't always the case, but they learned from their mistakes, and glory to God.
Things have gotten much better in the later years for them. They've gotten their stuff together.
Yeah.
It was in process, and there were some bad things while I was there, but they've got their ship cleaned up.
It's all cleaned up. Yeah. So, excellent. So, there you are. You ordained as a priest. We have you coming down every once in a while just so we can, get to know you a little bit better.
Oh, absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And mentored a little bit by Father Basil. Yeah.
A blessed memory.
Amen. Yeah, almost 2 years right now. So.
Such a lot.
Right.
But I have that green cassock.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that man.
I joke.
I love that man.
I did too.
Yeah. So that was awesome having you around for a little bit, and you had an interim assignment where you went in and kind of figured out how to love people as a priest.
It was one of the best experiences I could have asked for as after becoming a priest. I got to serve at a little parish in rural Pennsylvania, where they hadn't had a priest in a while, or at least not a full-time priest. And so they were already running the church. So all I had to do is come in and learn the liturgy and learn how to hear confession. Yeah. And those are the things that, even though you're taught those things in seminary, there's still a learning curve. And so I didn't have to deal with all the politics. I didn't have to deal with the budget. I just came in and loved on the people for a while, and it was a great learning experience for the first 6 months.
Good.
In Mount Carmel.
Okay, now we're going to bring those two stories, Los Alamos and Kenyan come Father Theophan Mackey, right? We're going to bring them together. There was this need for a priest there in middle of nowhere, New Mexico.
Yep.
And you just happen to know New Mexico because you went to school there, became Orthodox there, right?
Yep.
Other side of the state, big state.
Big state, yeah. 5 hours away from where I lived before and still in the same state. At 80 miles an hour, 5 hours away. The Archbishop, then Bishop Daniel, called me up in November of... Anyway, can't remember the year. He called me up in November, almost done with my 6 months there in Mount Carmel, and said, "How do you feel about New Mexico?" And I said, "Anywhere but Las Cruces." I didn't want to go to the south of the state. Again, it's just too hot. And he said, "Well, I got this little place in the north that's interested. I want you to go down and interview. And remember, you're interviewing them. They're not interviewing you. Just tell me if it's a place that you can live." I'm like, okay. So we took our whole family, all five of us. Little Allie was 3 months old at the time, and we came down here, interviewed for a couple days, talked to the people, and said, you know what, this is a great place, and we can do this. And so our we got in January 6th. My first service was the night of January 6th. They came in old calendar, and so it was Christmas Eve. It was our first service. Christmas Day, January 7th, was our second service, and it's been rolling since then.
Wow. And so, give us some of the highlights, the things, so we can recognize the growth trajectory, kind of where y'all were and where you're at.
Well, the funny thing is, it's not growing terribly quickly.
You moved into a new space.
I don't think Orthodox. We only have 18,000 people to draw from.
Right.
So it's not. I mean, maybe if I was a better evangelizer, we'd have more, but I don't know that that's the case. It's a slow process. We do have more members in good standing than we did before. We've lost a couple people just from moving away and that kind of thing. But we have a new building. Well, now 4 years old. We remodeled a building and moved in. We built the tower and put the dome on. But I think we're a stronger parish than we were before. We're more diverse. There are more people supporting the church than there were before. And so I think now we have 15 members in good standing, plus 15 kids, plus 15, 20 people who are not members in good standing, but kind of in the next circle outside. There are people, but they're not parishioners. They're not members. Right. And I take to heart what Archbishop Daniel put in his letter of assignment to me here. He said, you're to minister to the people of St. Jovo Pachayev Orthodox Church and the people of northern New Mexico. So he didn't say, take care of your church. He said, all of this is yours, wherever the light touches, And so I've taken that to heart. We're up until the current crisis, I was doing a monthly service in Farmington, which is 3.5 hours away. We've worked with Deacon Ted down in Alamogordo to get his mission started. And then we're looking at Deacon Lorenzo in Albuquerque. We don't know what's going to happen with him, but he's coming up to the end of his seminary career. He was a Roman Catholic deacon for 20 some odd years. And he walked in one day and it's like, I'm done with the Catholic Church. What can we do with Orthodoxy? I'm like, sure, come on in.
He is the most evangelical Roman Catholic formed person that I've ever known. He goes straight to the relationship with Christ. It's all about what's real. It's just fantastic. So talk about this for a little bit, because this is something special, right? Is the number of men that you've got going, discerning vocations.
Yeah, I kind of harp on it all the time. Even if you're not going to be a clergyman. Okay, so when I was a ATM technician, way back, my company would pay you to go to school. Any degree you wanted, any school you wanted, because their goal was to have the most highly educated workforce on earth. I want my church that way. I don't care, male, female, doesn't matter. Clergyman, not, doesn't matter. Future clergyman, not, doesn't matter. If you want to go to seminary, you should go to seminary. If you want to learn more, and I feel partially because of my lack. Okay, I am not an academic. I got through seminary just barely. Okay, I did well in my classes, but there are no papers that anybody wants to read from my time in seminary. Okay, I will teach Sunday school, and sometimes I'll hit on something good, but most of the time it's just Father Theophan's comedy hour. Um, Go to seminary. If you really want to know this stuff, go to seminary. And we make it pretty darn easy to do in the UOC. So yeah, I harp on it all the time. I want orthodoxy to spread. I want to be able to gather with 10 clergymen in my area. And right now, 40 minutes away is the closest priest. It's like this needs to be bigger than it is.
Right.
We're not the best kept secret. We need to be we need to be on the menu.
Yeah, and the idea is so not all these men, they're not, that there's no parish waiting for them, right? But the idea is that, in a way, one way of looking at it is that supply creates its own demand, right? If you train people
Right.
on how to evangelize, there's a whole set of fields out there just waiting to be, nurtured.
The fields are white.
Right.
The fields are white with harvest. So so our guy in Farmington that's in seminary right now, sweet guy. He's going to retire as a cop here in another year. Just a wonderful, wonderful guy. In Farmington, there's no way that they are going to be able to call a priest and support him. I'm going up there once a month, and I'm willing to go up there once a month for the next 5 years. But he's my end game. He's the way I get out of that by becoming a priest, and he will have his retirement. He already has his house. He's established. He has his choir because he has 5 kids. Beautiful singing voices, all of them. If he discerns that and the priesthood is in the future for him, that's how I can extricate myself from Farmington. Not that I want to. I love the people. But then the mission can start. And there are probably about 10, maybe 15 people that could start the mission up there, but they can't support a priest. So we got to find another way.
Right, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, is because I think this needs to be our attitude right now. There's so much that we need to be doing as we come out of this crisis. It's going to be a lot of hurting people, and we can't wait. We can't say we'll evangelize once we can afford a building. We'll evangelize this area once we can afford a priest. No. So in the meantime, while he's going to our classes and stuff and discerning and growing and testing and things like this, he's I assume that there's a regular prayer life going on. Doing like house church.
Well, before the crisis, obviously, he was doing weekly reader services. I would send him up material, send him up a sermon, or something to read during the service, and he would do Typica every Sunday for the people. And we're using my brother's church in Farmington. My brother's the Episcopal priest in Farmington. It's a family business. So they're doing every Sunday Typica, and then I go up on a Saturday and do a Divine Liturgy.
Beautiful.
And it works out. And there's a possibility for a standalone church there, on the property of the Episcopal Church. They have a vacant lot next to them, and I'm like, hey, how would you like to have just like a little, off the grid church? Just bring it in and set it on blocks next to your church, and the possibility is there. We still need to work out the logistics of that.
Excellent. And then you've got your good deacon going out there to Albuquerque, right?
Yep. He lives in Albuquerque. He works up here in Los Alamos. So what will happen with him? I mean, I think the priesthood is in his future, no doubt, in my mind. And then what he does, I don't know. The possibilities. He's coming up on retirement from his secular job, and that frees him out. And his kids are grown, and his wife is willing to move. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is just. We could have a supply priest on the East Coast or something, or we don't have any supply priests right now. A supply priest would be in high demand in our
Yeah.
church, and in
Yeah.
almost any Orthodox church, a supply priest would be in high demand. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
not up
then
to me.
Alamogordo, right? They're willing. I've seen pictures of the
Alamogordo,
chapel they've been building.
isn't that awesome? Yeah. 2 years ago, um, can I tell another story? Okay. So when I was at St. Tikhon's, I started a thing called Elijah's Mantle, where churches with extra stuff, Orthodoxy takes a lot of stuff. So churches with extra stuff, like extra chalice or old vestments or whatever you needed for church, um, could donate those items to Elijah's Mantle, and then we would send them out to missions and churches that were just starting or were poorer and couldn't afford the stuff for the cost of shipping. And so while I was there in seminary, I sent out 50 sets of vestments. I sent out probably 5 chalice sets, all sorts of fans and candlesticks and censers and all the stuff. Well, they've kept it going since I've been gone, and I've gotten some stuff from them, which is nice, which was really the ulterior motive of the whole thing. But um, one of the priests who asked for things first, when I first started Elijah's Mantle, he's a regular at St. Tikhon's, but he's non-canonical. Okay, he's with another group, small group, and he's very elderly. And he came up and asked for something, um, and I asked the dean, Father Alexander Addy of blessed memory. Um, I said, "Do I give things to non-canonical groups?" And he said, "Is it a chalice?" And I said, "No, it's not a chalice." And he's like, and I quote, "Love comes back around." Okay? And so I gave a blue cassock and some vestments to this non-canonical priest. Okay. This priest, over the years, has kept in contact with me, checking up on me, seeing how I'm doing, taking a personal interest. So 2 years ago, I'm here in Los Alamos, and he calls me up and says, "How are things going? Yada, yada, yada. I'm retiring because of health reasons. I want to give you everything. Vestments, chalices, candlesticks, everything." He's like, "Do you need these? Do you have someone who needs them?" And I said, "I got a guy in Alamogordo who's starting a mission, and he's got nothing." And he's like, "Okay, come and get it." And so, with the blessing and some money from the national church, Deacon Ted and I flew to North Carolina, rented a U-Haul truck, filled a 16-foot U-Haul truck, and drove to New Mexico and dropped off everything. So love comes back around for the goodwill of a cassock and a set of vestments from Elijah's Mantle. We've outfitted a brand new mission. And so Deacon Ted is going great guns down there in Alamogordo. When this crisis is all over, I have no doubt that he'll fill up that chapel pretty darn quick. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, loaves and fishes. Loaves and fishes.
Yeah, you send good stuff out there. Good stuff will come back.
Wow, I love it. That's so beautiful. So you're a craftsman, and we're going to bring you on again, obviously. And
Jack of all trades,
right, jack of all trades, which is awesome. That's a good thing for a priest to be, because you know,
especially mission priest.
right. So let's talk about a couple of the projects you've done. You've got a workshop that you've set up in your garage, you know,
Yep.
and you built a tiny chapel.
I built a traveling chapel. Yes. It's a think tiny house, but tiny church instead.
Yeah.
It's 16-foot car carrier, flatbed trailer that I've built a church on. It's got a dome and everything. Um, yeah, I because of this crisis, I don't have that many things to do during the day. A few things, but I go out and got a new floor in it. I'm putting up the wall. I'm putting up the paneling on the inside. I'll be ready for the icon soon.
Thank
I
God.
think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, what are a couple other projects? And of course, you learn how to metalwork, all this kinds of stuff that you just
Yep.
knew that you needed to do it,
Yep.
so you figured it out. It's awesome. Awesome.
Well, the metalwork comes from art school.
Wow.
Learned how to weld in art school. Um, but yeah, I've got my welder and my metal brake, and I've got a metal shop. I've got a ceramics studio, and I've got a wood shop. Uh, I'm a little ADHD when it comes to projects. It's like, okay, I'm done with this now, or I don't have the material for this at the moment, so I'm going to go do something else. I'm just loving the lathe.
Hmm.
I just absolutely love the lathe. You can turn a piece of wood, a chunk of cherry, into something beautiful. I got my chainsaw. I've got a carving going of a cherry stump, a 300-pound cherry stump. I got all sorts of stuff going on.
Okay, so what are you working on the lathe, and what's that stump gonna become?
Well, the lathe I've been learning, and so when I get bored and don't have anything else to do, I make wands a la Harry Potter for my girls. Um, Finish those up, make all different designs and everything, and it's just good practice. And I can toss one off in a day, in an afternoon. Um, Trying to do a woman and child in chainsaw carving. Uh, got my pottery going. Need to make more mugs. That's what everybody wants. And a pickle jar. Somebody wants a pickle jar.
Yeah, you're gonna make it with the top that has the trough, so you can put the water.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah. I've got one of the real nice German one that for kraut and stuff. It's awesome.
There you go.
Yeah, very good. So another
Well,
thing you've been doing. So it's tough, right? Being a priest and not being able to be with your
no.
people, especially when they're hurting. What?
And especially when you're a terrible extrovert. Being extroverted during this thing is the worst. It's like, oh, I miss people.
And
Miss people
you're a
so
high
much.
energy extrovert too.
I am. It's awful.
So one of the things that I've seen and that just I love is you're doing the akathist.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
When 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 Archbishop Daniel, so it was the middle of Great Lent, and Archbishop Daniel came down with the instructions that public church services stop. Um, I was like, well, what can I do? I don't I don't really like doing a service that requires responses without someone who to give responses. I don't like saying the litany and saying "Lord have mercy." It should be communal in my mind, or for my aesthetic, I guess. And so we have a book of Akathists, and I was at a like great Pantaleimon, great martyr and healer Pantaleimon. I'm like, this is perfect, and so I took it upon myself to start saying that Akathist every night at 8 o'clock, and I live stream it on Facebook. Um, And now that Lent is over, but the crisis is still going, it was kind of like a Lenten discipline, but we're still in it. We're not in Lent anymore, but we're still separate. And so maybe I'm Pantaleimon is protecting a few people.
Yeah.
And
And you've
nobody
developed
else is doing that.
you've developed this relationship with him as well. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that's beautiful.
Well, one of our parishioners has a relic of Saint Pantaleimon, and so we have that in the church now while I'm doing it. So that's
Great. Wow. Yeah. So what are you looking forward to as a community and as an extrovert with all these ideas? What have you come up with? What's going to be the big we're back sort of experience?
Oh, we're going to do our Paschal picnic whenever we get back together. It's going to be Pascha. But what I'm hoping is that when we get back together, that will be a day to celebrate in perpetuity. It'll be like, no, we were separated for these months, and this is the day that we were given it all back.
Right.
The day that we can celebrate together. So there will be. We're good at partying.
So I wonder, you're studying iconography, right? One of
Yeah,
the things.
we're having to cancel our iconography workshop this year, which is really sad.
Yeah, that is sad. That is sad.
Yeah.
So how about maybe an icon to help commemorate that? Um, One of
That's a
the
really
things
good idea.
that our church
Another
has done,
project.
right? Another project. If you don't create enough ideas, I got my good idea wand, and I just wave
Right.
it, right?
Okay.
So, is the Pokrova icon, with
Hmm.
and you see them in our churches with the Pokrova and offering the protection over a little picture of the parish or the community and things like this. That's a nice icon, and then have the saints that are commemorated on that day to pin it to that specific
Hmm.
day, right? Well,
That's a really good idea.
yeah. I've got more. Just give me a call.
Do you know someone who can do that for me? Because yeah, I have so many projects. Oh my gosh, I'll never get them done.
And you know what?
So
Yeah.
so in the traveling chapel, I have 4 octagonal windows, and I'm doing the trim around the windows. And I'm like, what would be really nice is if I took and carved Celtic knotwork in this octagonal trim. And so I go down and on the computer I lay it all out and I transfer it onto the wood and I start carving it. And I take it to my wife and I go, "What do you think about this?" And she's like, "Can you do this at the end? How long is this going to take you?" And I'm like, "Well, one 12-inch piece will probably take me a day." And she's like, "So you're talking about a month's worth of work to do the trim around the windows?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Put it off till the end." I'm like, okay. So, yeah, it's caution the better part of valor. Yeah, so she balances me quite well.
Oh, that is so awesome. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, but I can carve Celtic knotwork, which is fun.
Awesome.
So
So where can people
yeah.
find you if they want to see your Celtic knotwork, for example?
Oh well, you're not going to see that. Well, actually, so this is what I'm working on right now. Is I'm going to start a video blog. But I'm not a theologian. I don't know languages. I'm not a scholar. It's going to be the priest's workshop. I'm going to show you how to do stuff in the workshop and maybe, just maybe, tie it into something spiritual. Maybe, maybe not. But that's my wheelhouse. So that's what I'm going to go with.
I
So,
look forward to that. Yeah.
yeah, keep an eye on YouTube. I'll announce it and make it public.
Awesome. And in the meantime,
Yeah,
you're on Facebook, right?
I'm on Facebook. Just look up Joba Pachayev, Orthodox Church, um, and follow us. And I go live at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. Nobody lives in Mountain Time, so 10 o'clock Eastern Time.
Thank you.
Uh, right. Uh, and finish your day with Akathist.
All right, let's make one more pitch before we stop for now. So there's a real need for evangelists, right? For people to go out, and whether that's just through acts of kindness or starting a Bible study or whatever it is, right? And one of the ways to discern that call and to equip yourself for it is through our distance learning program. Can you tell a little bit about that and what people can do to find out more?
Well, contact me, please. It's my email address is fr.father.theophan.mackey@gmail.com. My phone number is 575-915-6535. Give me a call if you want to go to seminary, if you're discerning a call, if you want to know more about church. This is a great way to do it. There's a 3-year program that's all distance except for once a semester. You head up to New Jersey for a weekend retreat. It's a wonderful time. If you have trouble, if it's a matter of payment, we'll figure this out. Money should not be the reason you don't go to seminary, and it's relatively expensive anyway.
So is this just for men who want to become deacons or priests, or is this open generally? Is it open to women?
If you want to know more about the church, go to seminary. Not male, not female, doesn't matter. If you want to know more about God, go to seminary. But go humble. It'll be the best 3 years of your life. Our distance learning is 3 years for the diaconal formation, is what we call it, even if you don't become a deacon. And then there's another 3 years for the priestly formation, which requires a little bit more travel to New Jersey. But they can be taken concurrently. We have one guy who's doing that right now. And so he'll be ready. He'll be at least academically ready for the priesthood in 3 years. So actually 2 years now. He's already finished up his first year, so that's great.
Fantastic.
If you want to learn about the church, if you want to learn about Christ, go to seminary.
And we've been really intentional. It's a quality program. You'll love it. You will absolutely love it.
We are 1 month, depending on if they meet or not, we are 1 month away from our first step into accreditation. We will have we're going to hopefully get a positive review. We were told we were going to get a positive review with ATS, the Association of Theological Schools. They meet in June, if they meet, which I hope they do. We should have our first step of accreditation, and then we have 3 years to get to the next step. But in 5 years, if everything goes well, God willing, we'll have full accreditation, and that's retroactive to the beginning of the process. So the people who are in seminary now, in 5 years, will have an accredited degree, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
transfer anyway.
Right. So right now we're licensed by New Jersey to give the degrees, but okay, wonderful. Yeah, and I encourage everybody, take advantage of this. We keep costs low.
We're also working on getting with the VA, so that you can use the GI Bill to go to seminary too.
Fantastic.
So that's another thing.
Okay, well, Father Theophan, I really do appreciate your time. I love your energy and your kindness, your evangelical kindness. Right?
That's what I got.
Don't be a jerk. Right? Well, it works.
Don't be a jerk.
It works.
Don't pitch. It does. It
Oh,
does.
yeah. So you willing to come on again?
Sure.
Okay, fantastic. All right, everybody. If you enjoyed today's show, and why wouldn't you have, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want to see more, you can subscribe. If you want to get notifications, ring the bell. If you really like it, share it with your friends. Let them know, hey, there's this thing going on Father Anthony's back porch in Hartwell, Georgia, and sometimes on Father Theophan's porch in Los Alamos, right? So awesome.
There you go.
Well, until next time, find the button.
God bless.